Hey, everybody. What an interesting time we live in. Today, we're going to talk about Trump, Epstein, and France's decision to recognize the state of Palestine. My name is Musa. I've been an attorney for 25 years. I practice in three different jurisdictions, and I do primarily criminal defense. The shark you see back there circling is Ladybird, and let's talk about the crazy, crazy shit that's happening right now. So, wait, let me get this straight. There's lots of questions about what's happening with Jeffrey Epstein, and they want to go to the perpetrator, not the victims. This is confusing to me, and I don't quite understand how it can happen like that. There's a Victims' Bill of Rights in almost every state. You've probably seen Kelsey Grammer or some other star uh, pushing one of these legislation bills. And it requires that victims be informed in any type of case where there is a victim. Um, so, sure enough, they just went ahead and bypassed all of that. You're seeing some of the victims right now saying that Republican senators are not willing to speak with them, but they're very eager to speak with Miss Maxwell. Somehow the word of a convicted sex trafficker who is looking for a lifeline to get out of a 20-year prison sentence that keeps her in there till she's in her late 70s or 80s. That's the person who's more believable. I can tell you as a former prosecutor that that would be the first time in history that a prosecutor would choose that route to go. And who is the attorney, the number two in command at the Department of Justice? I believe his name is Mr. Blanchard, Tom Blanchard. Did you know he also happened to be the defense attorney of Donald Trump? Now he represents the United States, but before he represented Donald Trump, and he still has a duty to President Trump as his attorney. So let's talk about the modern rules of professional responsibilities for attorneys, Rule 1.7, conflict of interest. You can find this anywhere. Almost every state has a similar or exact same rule in their books. Any state that has licensed lawyers in it, at least. So, in any event, this person is seeking to find out potential criminal behavior of an individual who also happens to be a former criminal defense client of his. So there's two duties there. There's one to your client, and there's one to the United States of America, and they completely collide, right? So if, for example, Ghislaine Maxwell spills all the tea, well, what's the former defense attorney supposed to do about that? He has an ethical obligation. And additionally, he's aware of things that the client has told him in attorney-client protected communications. And he can use those things to direct how this goes. Now, keep in mind, he's already said, we're just talking to talk. Nothing's going to change as far as we're concerned. You know, the whole thing is a hoax made up by Obama, which leads to another question. I don't understand how it is when, look, everybody says people like Bill Clinton are in the Epstein files. And if you were to walk up, and I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent, and frankly, I can't stand Democrats, but the one thing I'll give them credit for is this. It's that if somebody said Bill Clinton was in the Epstein files, they'd be like, yeah, you're right. That's terrible. We should go back and look at them and prosecute those things. But if you say it to a Republican about the president, boy, it's a completely different, complete denial and backlash despite all the evidence that's out there. Couple that with the fact that the attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell and Blanchard are very close. In and of itself, that doesn't mean anything, but they're both defense attorneys. Defense attorneys speak about their cases. Lord only knows if they have any communication about the potential criminal defendant in this case at a prior time. I know that there were podcasts that Blanchard appeared on that were hosted by Maxwell's lawyer, where they talk about their closeness, they talk about representing the president and their jobs. So the appearance of impropriety is absolutely disgusting. This is just another play into the hands of whoever's saying it's cover up, because at this point, it is. It clearly looks like one. And the one person that you have to go to interview her is the one person that has probably the biggest conflict of interest in your entire Department of Justice. Crazy. Now we have the FBI files saying that he's definitely in the Epstein files, and by him I mean the president. He's in the Epstein files. They had the FBI before saying, you can't let these out. You're in there way too many times. The Wall Street Journal reporting a letter from a leather-bound book where the president has allegedly handwritten note to Jeffrey Epstein talking about their beautiful secrets that they have together. And then we also have a very interesting situation where Trump has sued the Wall Street Journal, owned by one of his allies, Rupert Murdoch, because of that story. But the Wall Street Journal has since doubled down and released more and more about those stories instead of going less and less. There was even communication with the president beforehand, before the release of the story, with the powers that be at the Wall Street Journal. And they still released those stories. So you have to take all of that and look at the totality of the circumstances and see if, in fact, you believe the bullshit that they're trying to sell you, or you can see right through it. Let's move on, and we'll move on now to France choosing to recognize the state of Palestine. And this is strictly for history, because at this point, France recognizes what's happening. The entire world does. At this point, there are 162 countries that recognize Palestine, which is way more than recognize Israel in its current amorphous expansion form. So there's a lot of political pressure that the world never would have had Benjamin Netanyahu not just gone psychopath and scorched earth and decided to have a war of extermination, to which all scholars are calling a genocide. But when you see RFK not call it a genocide, keep in mind he's not a scholar. So, any asshole can have their own opinion. Regardless, this is strictly as a result of the pressure that Benjamin Netanyahu is putting on the world to condemn this heinous, brutal genocide. And now they can no longer hide the brutal, brutal occupation that they've had the Palestinian people under for 100 years. And you will see that it is breaking bit by bit. You've seen a Jewish teacher getting tossed off a plane for chanting "Death to Arabs," which apparently is one of the favorite songs in Israel. And I guess it's catchy. I don't know. But yeah, the lyrics aren't that great. Not really well thought out. Keep in mind, when you allow things like that to happen, the opposite is going to happen too. And if you allow people to maintain that level of rhetoric, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Thank you. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it if you had a chance to get to my YouTube channel. That really helps out a lot. If you can give me a subscribe,